Previous part of this video here, we sort of developed everything we need here to have a football player moving around on the moon and responding with a score going up every time I click on the football player. So I'm going to stop the code. And again, if I hit the green flag, the football player will start at its sort of home position and the score will go back to 0. And it looks like just a good way to start something over. And of course, you can make it go really fast or slow if you want to increase the difficulty, but I'll just leave that at the moment here. Okay. So the next thing to do then is maybe let's add a little bit of sound effects in here. So I have this tower going here that says when this sprite is clicked, change score by 1. And I can even add a little sound in there, like I could go in here and say, play a pop sound until done. Let me just see what else is in there. Pop, yeah, I'll just leave it there. Pop is fine. So now if I click on the football player, every time I click on him, the score goes up and I get a popping sound. So you can see I'm really getting some interactivity going here, and you can probably think of many other things you could do with it as well, okay? And so let me do one more bit of user interaction here. There's another sort of nice thing you can choose under the events here, which is when a key is pressed. So it just doesn't have to be the mouse. You can choose a key from the keyboard. So I'll once again drag this down. Again, when it has the curved roof like this, it doesn't fit in anywhere. It's always going to start a tower. And so what I'll do is I want to maybe have a reset for the score so I can make the score start over if I so desire as I go. And so what I'll do then is I'll go back to variables right here and I'll say set my variable to 0. But again, it's not called my variable, it's the one called score. So I'll set it to 0, and I suppose I could use when the space is pressed, but maybe I'll just to mix things up a bit, say when the R key is pressed, R for reset. So now as it runs, let me just start it over and let it run, and I'll get a few points here by clicking on the football player. Now whenever I hit the R key, see the score goes back down to 0 like that. So you have something I hope you see between the keyboard and the mouse. You can sort of invent your Scratch stories or code that the user just doesn't have to watch. The user can actually get in, and that's what we call interact with what goes on the screen, which makes it a little more compelling to use. Okay, and also before I go on now, to sort of finish this up, I also want you to see how this is all the code under the same sprite. Notice that there's like 3 of these towers of code sort of going on at once, or stacks of blocks, whatever you want to call them. We have the core one here that started just to get the football player going when we click the green flag. We have a tower that deals just when the sprite is clicked. And we have a tower here when the R key is clicked just to process making the score go to 0. So we can add as many of these things as we want under another sprite, and Scratch just sort of goes and processes them all at the same time. So all of these blocks, this one, and this one, are all sort of active and operating at the same time as we go. Okay, so what we'll do now is let's just sort of finish this up, and let's add another sprite to this and see what that does for us. Okay, so I'll go down here and I'll add another sprite. I think it's this one. And I'm going to choose a tennis ball. If I can find that tennis ball again, let me go under sports. And there we go. It's just curious that there's no football in sprite in Scratch anywhere. So anyway, but you can see my story. I have a football player playing tennis on the moon. So it's of course sort of an interesting story there. So what I'll do is notice that the screen went blank suddenly because I'm under the tennis ball now. If I go back to the football player sprite, there's all my code that is driving the football player. But over here, I haven't told the tennis ball to do anything yet. So what I'll do is I'm going to sort of move it over here. And as usual, and sort of, well, the way I've decided to sort of run my Scratch code, I do this all the time. I'm going to wait for that green flag to be clicked again. And when that happens, I'm going to move the tennis ball to this location over here. See the XY coordinates, they're about 150 minus 45, 150 minus 45, just to get the tennis ball over here. And you could track any position you want, but that, of course, gets the tennis ball way over to that side of the screen. So whenever I hit this green arrow, green flag, pardon me, the tennis ball will reset its position, and so will the football player, and it'll be sort of set to go. Okay? And so what I'll do now is I'll see if I can sort of get some interaction going here. What I want to do is I want to make the tennis ball sort of glide around whenever it's hit by the football player. That's sort of going to be my story here. So what I'll do is I'll go back to events here. I would like to say if I can look through the blocks here and see if I can find something that allows me to see when the football player may interact or touch the tennis ball. And indeed, I see this block right here under sensing that says if I'm touching the mouse pointer, that isn't quite what I want here, but I do see, if I click on the drop down, touching the tennis ball. So that's kind of interesting. So what I can do here is as the football player is gliding around, I just want to check if it's touching the tennis ball. So what I'll do is I'll go in here under control and I'll use this if statement right here. So what the if statement works is as follows here. It says, okay, you can ask a question. If something happens that you'll have to decide what that thing is, then do whatever's in the mouth of this block here. So let me just sort of drag these two things, this back in here. So I'm gliding forever, I'm gliding around, but I also just want to check if I ever happen to touch that tennis ball. So I'm going to drag this touching bit. See the way the diamond sort of matches with the diamond right there? If I'm touching, and let's say in this case, the tennis ball, then what I like to do is sort of do something to the tennis ball. And in this case, what the do something is going to be, and this is a new thing for us here too, is I'm going to use something called this event here. I'm going to broadcast a message out to the tennis ball. So that's sort of what I'm going to do. I'll put it right in here. And instead of calling it message one, I'll say a new message, and I'm going to name my message gotcha. Or gotcha, something like that. Okay, something like that. So let's go back and look at what this code even does here. So when the green flag is clicked, I'll set my score to 0, move to my home position, the usual things. And then forever and ever and ever, which is what this big sort of structure does on the outside, I want to continually glide to a random position that gives the football player that motion that we see. But now the new thing I want to do, I want to say, hey, if during your gliding you happen to touch the tennis ball, then I want to broadcast this message gotcha out. And what this broadcast does is it doesn't actually print anything or say anything, but just sort of internally underneath the hood of Scratch, it just sort of sends all the sprites, this little word here, sends all the sprites the word gotcha, like that, okay? And so what am I going to do with that? Well, let me go over to the tennis ball now, and what you'll notice over here is there's another block that says, hey, when I receive the message gotcha, remember that under the hood message that Scratch is going to send out, this is the way the tennis ball can sort of see that. And what I'll do is when I get the message gotcha, that means the football player must be touching me. Let me make the tennis ball glide to a random position like that. Okay, let's see what we have. So the what I think is going to happen here, none of this is going to change. None of this is going to change. I can click the sprite and make the score go up by 1. I can reset the score with the R key. But over here, this is sort of the new block here. As I glide, I'm going to say, if I ever touch the tennis ball, send out this message called gotcha. And over here into the tennis ball, go, okay, if I ever receive the message called gotcha, glide around. And because this glide is in the tennis ball's code area, it'll apply only to the tennis ball. So when I run it, what I'm expecting to see is the football player to glide around. Every time he or she touches the tennis ball should start to move around. So let's watch. There we go. See that? The football player touched the tennis ball moved around. And I don't know if the football player makes it up into that black area there of the screen to touch it again. If not, I may have to. Here we go. Yep, there we go. Oh, I think it has to touch it sort of in the center. Let me move it down, something like that. Come on, now let's get somewhere. Here we go. There we go. See, it keeps moving again. All right. So there we go. Looks like the core functionality is working. And let's pick this up in the next video.